Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, January 16th, 2014. Clerk, would you call a roll, please?
Counselor McCormick? Here. Counselor Camardo?
Here.
Counselor Cuddy?
Here.
Counselor Rozika?
Here.
Mayor Quill?
Here. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You remain standing for a moment of silent prayer reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. Council, we have walk-on resolution number 11. If there's no opposition to it, we will add it to the meeting. Very well. Add resolution number 11 to the meeting.
Do we?
Counselor, I'm sorry.
Do we have a copy of it?
Should be right there on your
Maybe it is.
memos on
No,
the front.
wait a minute. Here I go. Am I the one? Sorry, but I'm not. There it is. Sorry. Put my stuff. I'm new.
So would you please add that to the agenda? We'll start out with our public to be heard, and clerk, if you read our rules and regulations, please.
At this time, we will open the public to be heard portion of the council meeting. As a reminder and pursuant to City Council Rules of Procedure, prior to addressing council, speakers are asked to state their name, address, and affiliation, if any. All comments should be addressed to the entire council and not to individual staff members. Your remarks must be limited to 3 minutes and concern only issues involving the city council, city government, or matters of general city concern. Issues involving specific employees of the city should be directed to the city manager outside of the meeting. All speakers before council will observe commonly accepted rules of courtesy. Personal attacks or abusive language will be ruled out of order.
Thank you. Mr. Ure, please. Either podium, whichever one you prefer, sir.
So I'd like to start by saying my name's Alex Vega. Live on North Marvin Avenue, 216. I don't have any affiliation with the city. I actually just moved here 5.5 years ago because I got a job teaching in the Finger Lakes area. My wife and I bought a house 2.5 years ago, and it's been a pretty happy time. The house is a wonderful house. We live on a nice street in a nice neighborhood, and we love it. However, now that she's pregnant, things are starting to come up and be wrong with the house. Everybody struggles a little bit when they have a kid on the way, and we've been putting money away. But Friday evening, I got a call from my wife before I got home from work, and our basement had flooded with sewage. So we snaked out, we called up Mr. Reuter. They snaked out the plumbing. They said, it might hold, it might not, we'll see what happens. They had a 30-day warranty on that snake out. So Monday when it happened again, I got to call them up again, and they came out for free this time. The snake then decided it wanted to break, and they had to give me the extra service, the $300 more service for free, which is amazing. So they video camered out my plumbing. What they found was the issue was around 42 feet past the wall of my house towards the street, which also coincided with the connection that the city has with my pipe. So basically what was happening is we saw the coupling from where the pipes came together, and we went another couple of feet, and then at that point the tree out front had crushed the connecting pipe. I've spoke about this with the city just to kind of get an understanding. Not everybody in here has heard this, but some people have. The code, the way it is written at this point, says that it's a lateral pipe because it runs off of the main sewer towards my house. The pipe that I have that has been put in by the architect, whoever, was cast iron. It went under this excessively large tree that's pulling on power lines and pulling up sidewalk and everything else as well, and it connects into a clay pipe. The clay is a lot less stable than the cast iron. It's not as strong, so therefore that is where the issue arose. I was also told, or at least this is my understanding, that the clay pipe, like I said, was a connection that was put in by the city so you could connect in the main. They don't want you just drilling into the side of the sewer. So that is the situation that I was assessed for, which it ended up being about $4,200 in one of the assessments. And this is all out of pocket for me. with a baby on the way, $4,200 is a little excessive, and I just wanted you to understand that the code, that the way it's written, hurts the people of the city, because, I mean, I'm going to have a hard time coming up with $4,200. There are fail-safes in place. There's a loan program through the city, kind of. It's been, at this point, overutilized because of the issue arising so often that it has been drained. But basically...
Mr. Vega, I got to ask you to wrap it up.
All right, yep. Nope, that's completely understandable. So basically, you could pay, and then the city would put it in your taxes, and you'd pay them, which would be great for somebody who would have a hard time getting a loan. I am going to have to get a loan someplace else because that's just how it works. I also do not qualify for the low income because my salary alone is more than meets the standards for 3 people in a household, even though my wife will not be working for the next 6 weeks. So I will leave it at that. I just think that it should be talked about over the next couple of weeks. And I'm in a rush home, so please excuse me. I don't mean to say something and then run out of here, but I want to be my wife. So have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else desiring to be heard this evening? In the rear, please.
Good evening. I am Roxanne Bell. I live up on Osborne Street. And I have an issue with not how much traffic we occur on Osborne Street, but how the traffic behaves. Recently, a neighborhood cat got ran over. The person was going so fast, they didn't even know they were in the cat harbor. Left it dead on the side of the road, and they kept going. My whole issue is the speed coming from Jack's on Osborne Street on the curve there. By the time they top to where my house is, they could be going in exceed of 60 miles an hour. I have no way of clocking this. The city does. The city has access. The second issue is there's a new playground on the street. No sign saying children at play, or maybe even just a posted sign what the city speed limit is. Third issue is the stop sign on Lincoln Street. Nobody stops at it. Maybe 9 cars out of 10 run it. We sit there in the evening in the summer in my front yard and laugh about it because it's just totally uncontrolled. Fourth issue, we have a heavy construction company down on Canal Street now. They come up Canal, and because there's no signs posted one way on that end of the street, they make a left and come up Osborne, and we're going to have a couple of, we've already had 2 head-on collisions there. Nobody really killed or hurt, thank God. Somebody's going to get hurt. With the excessive speeds coming down the street and people coming up the street the wrong way, something's going to happen bad. And it's going to happen in my front yard, unfortunately, because I live right there at the intersection. How to fix it? I'm just asking, maybe somebody can get a thing up there checking speed. You know, those little clock meters says you're going this fast. Maybe we can get, if that's not accessible, stop signs are really cheap. They come on a little post. You stick them and make a 3-way stop, maybe. So the cars coming up the hill the wrong way would at least have, excuse me, I'm nervous, would at least have to stop, at the least. Then the impact from this head-on collision that I envision will be a lot less because people are anticipating to come to the stop sign instead of just running and see how fast they can go. The other thing I have great concern about is the Grace House. When those kids come down off their front steps onto the sidewalk, I think it's 3 steps and they're in the road already. There's really no crosswalks. There's 16 people at all times living in that Grace House that have no idea what the neighborhood's like. I've yelled at 4 of them, maybe in the last month, hey, look it, watch out, because the cars come down so fast they don't expect it. Or maybe just a painted crosswalk or something to slow the traffic down up there. And I'll conclude with that, and maybe we can get together or come up with some ideas.
Thank you. Per our rules, we're not allowed to debate or whatever, but I do see that I've been watching the city manager making notes of everything you're discussing. I'm sure he'll be talking with the police department first of the week, so try to resolve some of your issues.
Just let you know they offend the speed too. The police department, they fly down too.
Okay.
They might not have an issue with it.
All right.
Thank you.
I didn't hear it, and I'm glad I didn't, so. Is there anyone else desiring to be heard? In the back here, please.
Mayor Quill, members of the council, my name is Tony Didabo, and I'm an Auburn resident, as well as a member of the Board of Directors of Auburn Public Theater. I'm here officially representing Auburn Public Theater, and on behalf of our Executive Director, Cara Dell, our Artistic Director, Angela Didabo, the President of the Board, Elizabeth Koenig, and my fellow board members, we would like to publicly thank the Bisgrove family, Guy Cosentino, and the entire staff of the Stardust Foundation, and recognize them for all of the generous and essential support that they have given to APT over the past years. The financial gifts that the Stardust Foundation granted to APT has helped make it possible for Auburn Public Theater to achieve its mission of an intimate, publicly accessible, and affordable theater space in downtown Auburn that challenges and educates our community and fosters creative growth through shared performance experiences, and to become what it is today, and to offer our community a place that will benefit this community for years to come. We just want to make that a public gratitude to them.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else desiring to be heard? Anyone else this evening? Very well, we'll close that public to be heard. Council, have been advised just prior to the meeting that the meeting minutes from December 23rd are not available. They will be available next week along with the first meeting of the year on January 1. I understand now we have Mr. Burns. Mr. Burns? From our assessor, our city assessor, excuse me.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. Being consistent with previous four-year update policies, council approved a resolution last June for a market update for the city of Auburn. This is the culmination of 1 year's worth of work. We appraised individually approximately 9,200 parcels, 80% of which are residential, 9% commercial, 9% vacant, 2.4% industrial. As appraisers, this was developed under USPAP, Uniform Appraisal Guidelines for mass appraisal, and we developed a cost approach, a model, and a sales comparison approach, and we reconciled these approaches on each property that we appraised. I'm here to show you tonight a couple quick slides. Keep in mind that anybody from the public can come up and request their information on their individual property, their cost sheet, their model, their comparable sales that we used. Additionally, they can request an informal hearing to come in and talk about their assessment or present evidence to the contrary once they receive their change notices. Incidentally, the change notices did go out this morning, and people should be receiving them tomorrow and Saturday. So without further ado, I'll show you a few slides of how we developed this, and I promise you I'll keep it brief. It's difficult to see, but this is a typical cost sheet. This is developed through Marshall & Swift's modeling cost valuation service. We actually arrived at land values through sales comparison analysis for the entire city back in 2010. We reanalyzed it and decided not to change land values for residential properties. In most of my presentation tonight, it concerns residential properties because it's 80% of the role. So this is a typical cost sheet. It gets into all the different square footage and attributes of the house, all the physical things that make up a property. The next item that we developed is known as the model. The model is developed through spreadsheet analysis, linear regression, and match pairs. We try to identify the components that contribute to value for residential property, such as number of bedrooms, bathrooms, garage, porches, again, square footage, condition, things like that. And we arrive, based on this spreadsheet analysis, at a model estimate for every property in the city. And I know this is difficult to see, but this is my own property, my own house. This is the comparable sales estimate. This is when we pull up to a house, this is where we have discretion to pick and choose comps to try to best match the property that we're appraising. All the comps are chosen. The computer can randomly pick the comps, or we can use discretion and pick them ourselves. And then adjustments are made between the sales, these are actually sales of similar properties in the neighborhood, and the subject property, the one that we're appraising. And as I said before, we drive up and inspect each house visually from the curbside. And the result of all this, we bring it back, everything's loaded into the computer, and we run what are known as change notices. And this is why I'm here tonight, to show you this change notice. This is what went out in the mail this morning. It goes over the actual change in value, a brief description of that your taxes may not necessarily change. Not all people went up, some went down, some stayed the same, depending on what we saw as we appraised that individual property. It gets into the grievance day, which is March 31st through April 5th. How to, the form that you need to go to grievance. But before that, before the grievance, there is one step that we offer, and it's if you feel your assessment is unreasonable, you can have an informal consultation, as I mentioned before, to discuss your property's market value. And these will be held by appointment February 3rd through the 7th and February 10th through the 14th. And we encourage people to come in if they feel that their assessment's unreasonable. Only an individual property owner really knows his house the best. Sitting from the curb, it's difficult to tell sometimes, but we do our best. And then once they come in, we encourage them to bring support of their opinion of their property's value. They can bring in evidence of photos, interior photos, recent sales of similar properties, etc. And the last thing I wanted to mention was a copy of all comparable sales using this update is available right now on the city's website. It was loaded on there today.
Questions, council?
Mike, you're doing a citywide reassessment, which I was not in support of, but how much new value did you pick up in the city of Auburn with this reassessment that you went through the process of doing?
Well, I'm going to say it tentatively right now. It's around $68 million. We picked up for the tentative roll. That's
what you picked up. How much new value did you pick up? $68 million?
$68 million. That's not total. That's just for the total would be greater than that.
Okay.
This is for the tentative. Not the tentative, but the preliminary value at this moment in time.
New value from
taxable value.
New value from last year.
From last year, $68 million, and I caution you that some of that could be given back through the grievance process. Okay, but if you ask me the question, I'll tell you that's what the number is.
And just another word of advice that I'd like to give is when these notices are sent out, can we send them out on the beginning of the week? It always seems like the city sends things out on a Friday, so when people pick this stuff up, we're closed on Saturday and they're closed on Sunday and they have no way of getting the information until Monday. It's very frustrating to the taxpayers out there to have that information. So if possible in the future, if we could get this stuff out at the beginning of the week instead of the end of the week where nobody's available, because we're going to have a lot of questions on this, and I think that they're going to need your advice and you and Mr. Farrell's advice, and I think the staff's advice to be available. So
I'll do my best, Counselor, next time. We did get them out on Thursday this time, so
yeah.
So at least they'll have tomorrow to call us.
A lot of them will fall on Saturday, and as you know, it creates a very difficult situation. So
I understand, sir.
Thank you.
Mike, this is the We do a re-eval every 4 years or 5 years? Tell me.
Every 4 years, Mayor.
And how long have we been doing that?
This has been going on since the early 90s.
90s, okay. I thought I was sure of that, and I was, but it was 4 or 5 years, so.
Now, just one other question, if I
Sure.
can,
Please, Counsel.
The assessed value in the city now, the school district, the city, and the county all place their taxable tax rates upon the assessments of the city, correct? Just so people are aware of that in the city of Auburn.
Yes.
So we got 3 taxing agencies who tax us on the assessed value of what you place on that home.
The taxable value, and that will be available June 1st for those different municipalities to use that number after all the grievances, when we know what the final number is at that time.
Thank you.
Sure. Anything else?
Mike, when you do your reval, let's take the VFW, for example.
Okay.
They're non-taxable, do you do a reevaluation of them also, not singling them out, but the same category?
Yes, we appraise every nonprofit entity in the city, so we know, we have an estimate of value on that property in case they become a tax-paying entity, which can happen. They can sell them, and they become a tax-paying entity.
So that would enter into the $68 million increase?
No.
No, it doesn't?
No, it doesn't, because what I gave you was taxable value.
Okay.
So
All right.
the full value would be something more than that, okay? I think the full value came out to 1.5 billion, and the taxable was just hitting right around $1 billion. So it was up, which was from the 900,000 some last year, 900 million and some last year it was.
Okay,
Okay?
very good. Anything else, Counsel? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Public announcements?
None.
City Manager's report.
I have a few things, Mayor. Franklin Street, the pipeline project, we've reached a critical juncture there, and I just want to read a press release it may have gone out already. The City of Auburn will be working on a portion of the Franklin Street waterline replacement project that will necessitate turning the water to the existing line off and connecting the completed portion of the new line to the water storage facility. This is scheduled to begin Tuesday morning at 5 a.m. and should be completed by 1 p.m. The city's water pressure will be reduced slightly so that residents at higher elevations may notice a slight reduction in their water pressure. This is next Tuesday. As part of the project, a small number of homes on Franklin Street between North Hoops and Marvine, including the main building of the community college, will be without water for about 2 hours starting at 5 a.m. In addition, a small number of homes on Cayuga Street from Franklin Street to Capitol Street and on Franklin Street from Adams to Elm Street will be without water for about 4 hours starting that morning. There's some impacts to the town of Senate that they're aware of. They'll be prepared to handle that. So traffic issues, we would ask everybody to be aware that there'll be intermittent alternative one-way traffic on Franklin between Marvin and Prospect, and in addition, Cayuga Street will be closed from Franklin to Capitol Street. So we'll be sending out later news releases as we get closer to that date. This is important because this is phase one of a two-phase project, and this portion of the line, once it's put into service, will really solve a majority of the problem and the concern we've had about a significant failure of the pipeline. The lower portion, the phase two portion that goes from Seward to Lewis Street, is a piece of line that area can be fed through alternative pipelines, and that's phase two. So this one section that's completed, it's been pressure tested and chlorinated, is the one that if it fails, we're out of water. So that's an important milestone, and we want everybody to be aware of that.
Can you just go over the dates one more time?
The dates when we'll have the cutover and will be affecting water pressure and service is next Tuesday, starting at 5 a.m. in the morning.
January 21st?
Yes, I think that's right.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Another item, and this came up the day before yesterday, at Booker T. Washington, which is a facility owned by the city, but is operated by a separate organization. and it functions as a community center. A vendor pointed out that he thought that we might have an electrical or fire hazard as a result of overloading of circuits there through a lot of computers that have been added to a building that wasn't designed for that. That was confirmed today. We issued an emergency work order to a contractor for about $5,000 to try to mitigate that problem. Wasn't something we planned on, but as the fire inspector inspected it, we know it was an immediate concern. A lot of children in that center, and we didn't want to let it go.
Doug, our person on staff couldn't handle that?
No, it's beyond the capability. It's work that a master electrician needs to do, installing a sub-panel.
Plus a license, you need a license.
Yeah. Another item, we have just about completed a phone audit, and when I talk about phone audit, I'm talking about the phone lines into City Hall and other city facilities. That's identified literally dozens of phone lines that are unused or used hardly at all. We'll be turning those lines off. We've done our best to identify every line that we think is functional at the city, but I want to basically let everybody know that if you happen to call a number that you're used to calling at the city and it's dead, it's disconnected, please call my office, 255-4146, and we can reactivate that line. We may turn off, what I'm saying is we may turn off a line that's still active, but we've done our best to identify everything from regular desk phones to fax machines to the elevators and conference rooms and so forth. But again, if anybody in the public is calling City Hall, a number you're used to calling, and you get no answer or a disconnected message, just call my office, 255-4146. And then I want to acknowledge one of members of our staff, Christina Selvik, along with the planning department, engineering department, because the city is happy to announce we've got a $1.3 million grant for the Owasco River Trail, the segment that runs through the city of Auburn. Christina, I hesitate to say this because we don't want anybody stealing her away, but she's very successful at getting grants for the city, and this is one of the biggest ones we've received recently, and I just want to acknowledge her. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you. Secret resolutions?
None.
Ordinances?
None.
Appointment resolution number 6 of 2014, confirming appointments to the Auburn Industrial Development Authority. We have a sponsor. Councilor McCormick and Councilor Cuddy.
Appointment resolution number 6 of 2014 by Councilor McCormick, seconded by Councilor Cuddy. Whereas in accordance with Title 15, Section 2304 of the New York State Public Authorities Law, the mayor is hereby recommending confirmation of members to be appointed to the Auburn Industrial Development Authority Board, and whereas in accordance with said Public Authorities Law, board membership must be included specific fields representing labor, business, industry, and education, and whereas the mayor recommends the appointment of the chairman of the Auburn Industrial Development Authority. Now therefore be it resolved that the Auburn City Council confirms the appointment of the following persons to the Auburn Industrial Development Authority Board for a term of 3 years, which term is set to expire on January 15th, 2017. At-large member Susan Chandler, 4 Rochester Street, Auburn, New York, 13021. At-large member Tricia Otley, 79 Capitol Street, Auburn, New York. At-large member Frank DeRosa, 3 Locust Street, Auburn, New York. Member of Labor William Andre, 24 Maple Street, Auburn, New York. Member of Business James Stacy, 100 Standard Avenue, Auburn, New York. Member of Industry Michael Kane, 173 North Fulton Street, Auburn, New York. School Board member Amanda Grover, 9 Benton Street, Auburn, New York. City Council member Mayor Michael Quill, 86 Lansing Street, Auburn, New York. City Council member Terrence Cuddy, 133 South Hoops Avenue, Auburn, New York. Chairman James Stacy, 100 Standard Avenue, Auburn, New York. Be it further resolved that said appointment shall become effective immediately.
Thank you. Discussion. Councilor Kamara.
I just have a question, Mayor, and John, you probably be able to answer this. As you know, the members of the ADA were confirmed on 12209, and they run out in 12/31 and 12. Just just to be, make sure of our dates here that are correct. I don't have a problem with any names brought forward, but it says the chairman and each member shall continue to serve until the appointment and confirmation of a successor. So we have ongoing people in those capacities. It said vacancies in such board occurring otherwise in the expiration term shall be filled by the mayor by appointment in council for the unexpired term subject to confirmation of the common council. Now, shouldn't these terms run to 3 years to 2015 instead of 2017 because they'd be filling out an unexpired term according to the law here?
No, I think the calculations were,
The calculations were the terms ran out in 2012. With 3 years, that should run to 15 because these people they weren't confirmed by council, but
Yes,
it
sir.
says subject to the law.
They were holdovers.
They're holdovers. So they're fulfilling another term, so that means that they should be going to 15 instead of 17. Just want to make sure that got our dates square here. And I'm referring to section 2304 of the
Right.
New York State statutes and codes.
New York say what?
New York State statute and codes 2304. Right here. Want to see a copy of it?
Well, it's the Public Authorities Law that
Uh-huh.
controls the appointments and the dates.
Right, I understand. So my question is, so these go to 15 instead of 17? I just want to make sure our dates are correct
Well-
here, because I know this issue came up
I know,
years ago, and
you say that the term expires, but they've served. So since they have served up until this point, the new appointment would be for an additional 3 years.
but we're filling terms right now is what we're doing, because those
Correct.
are holdovers, so they should go to 15 instead of 17, is my point.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't agree with it.
Okay. Can we get a ruling on that? I don't have a problem with moving forward, I just want to make sure these dates are correct.
If there is a change, we'll come back and visit it.
We can get a ruling on it, though, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Counselor.
I just wanted to say that in following the ADA board and all the projects that they've worked on, and any of the boards actually that we get volunteers for, it's a job that is not easy. Some boards are easier than others to work on, but I think the ADA board is challenging, I guess you might say. And I want to just express gratitude to those that are being reappointed and to those that are coming on that know what they're getting themselves into. I'm grateful to them on behalf of the city, and I know that I don't know some of the new ones personally, but I do know Trish Otley, and I know that she's going to be a great asset to the ADA board. So I just wanted to publicly state that we are really fortunate to have people that want to volunteer and do this kind of work for the city.
Thank you. Clerk, call the roll, please.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Counselor Camardo?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Rozika?
Yes.
Mayor Quill?
Aye.
Carried.
Appointment Resolution Number 7 of 2014, appointment to Historic Resource Review Board. Excuse me, do we have a sponsor? Counselor Camardo, seconded by Counselor McCormick.
Appointment Resolution Number 7 of 2014 by Counselor Camardo, seconded by Counselor McCormick. Whereas the Auburn City Code, Chapter 178, entitled Historic Preservation, was established to protect the many structures and landscapes, features having special character or historic interest to the city of Auburn, and that it has been declared as a matter of public policy that the protection, enhancement, perpetuation, and use of improvements and/or landscape features of special character or history be preserved as a public necessity and required in the interest and welfare of the people of Auburn. And whereas Section 178-3 of Auburn City Code requires that members of the Historic Resource Review Board be appointed by the mayor and approved by council, and there is currently 2 members with expired terms, and new appointments are necessary. And whereas it is recommended that the following person be reappointed for a term effective May 6, 2013, and expiring May 6, 2016. James E. Hutchinson, 74 South Street, Auburn, New York, 13021. Now therefore be it resolved that the following person shall be reappointed to the Historic Resource Review Board for a term effective May 6, 2013 and expiring May 6, 2016. James E. Hutchinson, 74 South Street, Auburn, New York, 13021.
Thank you. Discussion. You call the roll, please.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Counselor Camardo?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Rozika?
Yes.
Mayor Quinn?
Aye.
Carried.
Appointment Resolution Number 8 of 2014, appointing an Auburn City Clerk. Do we have a sponsor? Councilor McCormick, seconded by Councilor Cuddy.
Appointment Resolution Number 8 of 2014 by Counselor McCormick, seconded by Counselor Cuddy. Whereas Section C-10A of the Auburn City Charter mandates that the mayor and city council appoint a city clerk, Charter Section C-10B sets forth along state law the powers, duties, and responsibilities of a city clerk, and whereas Deborah A. McCormick has held the office of the Auburn City Clerk, and she has now been elected as a member of the Auburn City Council. Prior to taking her oath of office as city councilor, she has resigned and has vacated the office of the Auburn City Clerk. Whereas it is now necessary that the mayor and Auburn City Council appoint a person to serve as Auburn City Clerk, and they are desirous of appointing Charles Mason, who resides at 204 Genesee Street, Apartment 7, Auburn, New York, to that office effective immediately. Now therefore be it resolved that Charles Mason is hereby appointed by the mayor and Auburn City Council to the office of the Auburn City Clerk. Said appointment shall be effective immediately upon Charles Mason signing the oath of office.
Thank you. Discussion? Councilor Rozika.
Yes, I'd like to make a thing clear here that that my problem with what transpired is not the fact that the majority can pick the city clerk position. That simply comes with the job. However, I take it the issue that the packet we received resolutions with no names on them, not just for the clerk's position, but also for the other appointments for the ADA board. Now, we did choose a Civil Service Commission, and this was communicated to the entire city council and the city manager days before the meeting, and we did not hide the identity of the appointment. Moreover, in 2 years, the council majority can make a new appointment because that term is due to expire at that point. This is a filled position. Now, we also chose a police chief who is a department head, just like the clerk's jobs is a position, is a department head. Now, there's a huge difference between the city clerk and the civil service commissioner, is that the civil service commissioner is not a department head, where the city clerk is. This is the big difference in these positions that everyone fails to recognize. The majority of this council, many in public, even local newspaper, all fail to recognize that fact. As the majority, we could have shut out the minority and made our selection of police chiefs solely on party affiliation and directed the city manager to place him in position. We did not do that. Instead, we fully engaged all members of council, and without looking at party affiliations, we made the selection based upon consensus within the council, and this was a very successful choice. The police chief has restructured that department and fit inside the budgetary constraints. He balanced the crossing guards and the SROs, and the department numbers total over 25,000 calls for service last year. I need to add this level of service is done with only 5 patrols, where the standards call for 8. To put this in perspective, this is like having only 9 firemen, where the standard calls for 14. Well, in the past, we've had a tremendous amount of, I'm going to say, party people approach us for various positions. However, we have always chose to pick people who are not tied to party bosses. Examples of these are Frank DeRosa, Norm Davis, Dan Emmy, and Denny Zach are just a few. The city clerk is a public office, so therefore he or she has to expect his name to be publicized. The reasons this was not added to this resolution are almost comical. To say he did not want his employer to know was just outlandish. What's going to happen if it was voted on the floor? Then he would just quit his job? Usually in a situation so as not to burn a bridge, most people give adequate notice. And I have to ask, do the ADA appointments apply to that as well? Now, if you didn't want to include Mr. Mason's name for the city clerk position, which is a $40,000 plus year job, base salary plus 40%, so it can go anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000 a year job. Because he ran your campaign, Mr. Cuddy, and has been a staunch, long-standing member of the Democratic Committee, then just say so. The appointee is also a well-known, very active political operative. And I'm concerned that he'll use this position for political purposes. This is why I cannot support his appointment.
Anyone else?
And now, I want to tackle real issues here and not have to deal with this level of clandestine political maneuvering.
Can I call the question, please?
I just hope that the hiring of our new assistant manager controller
Counselor,
will be in a much more open and transparent, and there are no political strings attached to that position.
Cuddy.
I've called the question.
Mr. Cuddy.
You cannot call the question while I have the floor.
Mr. Cuddy,
I'd like to have the floor for...
please. The question's been called, Mr. Cuddy. Counselor, and Counselor, you have a chance to speak.
Thank you.
Because the question has been called. So,
Thank you.
Counselor.
Before I address the criticism that I've received regarding the City Council's appointment of a city clerk tonight, I want to make some points about the highly qualified individual that is being named. Chuck Mason is an ideal candidate for Auburn City Clerk. Chuck has a master's degree in public administration from Cornell University. As a former city councilor and a former school board member, he has firsthand experience in the operations of local government. His tenure as a teaching assistant at Cornell University and managerial experience in the private sector showcases leadership abilities and people skills. I see Chuck Mason's appointment as a benefit for Auburn. Chuck's talent, expertise, and work ethic will immediately be evident as he assumes the position of city clerk. This is why I support Chuck Mason. In regards to how this position was filled, I must provide a chronology to counter being maligned in the local newspaper by my colleague. After November 5th, 2013, several individuals expressed interest in the city clerk position to Councilor McCormick and myself. Since Councilor McCormick had to step down, it gave the current council the opportunity to eventually appoint a city clerk. Thus, the express interest given to members who are in the majority party. These candidates, though, were explicit in wanting to maintain anonymous, staying out of the public eye due to their current employment status. Councilor McCormick and I respected their requests. On December 5th, a little over a month ago, the previous council made a political appointment to fill a vacancy of the Civil Service Commissioner. In that instance, there was no mention of an appointment in the published agenda, nor was there notice of appointment or name mentioned prior to that evening's council agenda. Our colleagues never formally notified Mayor Quill, Councilor-elect McCormick, nor myself regarding the Civil Service Commissioner position at that time. Although I was not pleased with the procedure, I conceded that it was their prerogative to conduct appointments that way. Touché. My critique was later noted in the December 22nd, 2013 Citizen, after the fact, when the newspaper approached me regarding the nature of the appointment. In that same article, my colleague, Councilor Rizika, was quoted asking, "And why is a civil service appointment suddenly a public query? This question may only be relevant when the person asking it is in the majority party." Tonight's agenda was published Friday, January 10th. This agenda included the appointment of city clerks and stated the name of the person who will receive that appointment will be forthcoming. The reason why there was no name on the agenda was that we had yet to notify interested individuals of a decision. Any respectable employer would honor the wishes of confidentiality and make sure that before a name became public, the individual would at least know she or he did not get the position. Once I notified the last individual that she or he would not be appointed, then I called my colleagues, Councilor Camardo and Councilor Rizika, to inform them the name of the potential appointment. Councilor Camardo appreciated the courtesy call and understood the nature of the situation. Councilor Rizika, on the other hand, was less than understanding, berating my colleagues and me. What I thought was a courtesy call to explain the situation was characterized as damage control. Perhaps Mayor Quill should have been extended the same kind of courteous damage control before the Civil Service Commissioner appointment last month. I want to end by saying that the Citizen's editorial regarding this issue was spot on and provides this council with an opportunity to reflect and move beyond reactionary politics. We need to bury the hatchet, but to do so, it requires self-awareness, maturity, and the understanding of a unique and awkward process of appointing a public position. Although I'm new at being a city councilor, I am very proud of the candidate that is being presented tonight before council. Chuck Mason is a more than worthy candidate.
Councilor Camardo, or whatever, Councilman, whoever.
That's right. I echo, I feel very confident in our candidate, in our appointment of Chuck Mason. He is an excellent candidate. Having done the job myself, I know that it has evolved, and it will evolve more as technology and other things become more of tools to the city than they have been in the past. And he will be able to meet the challenges that are coming. I'm happy that we have somebody like Chuck that's going to be our next city clerk. Aside from that, I'm sorry that this evolved or devolved into what it is. There's so many more important things that we need to be talking about tonight in the next 4 years. We've got firefighters, overtime in the fire department because we have layoffs. That's something that you should probably be focusing on. The $500,000 that the city taxpayers are out right now as we speak because we laid off firefighters when we could have kept them working and not had to pay this overtime that we're facing right now. Those are the things that people at home really care about. And I'm sorry that this had to take up time for this week when we could talk about things that really matter.
Councilor Camardo, please.
Thank you, Mayor. As the city charter states, as the clerk is an appointment from the city council. Now, the city council has a majority. That's your prerogative to pick somebody, pick an individual. You're going to be voted on it tonight. I'm sure you're going to move forward with that. That's the right of the majority. I understand it. I respect that. I did not agree with the process, but I'm not going to sit here and criticize that. I think we need, as a council, to come together, the 5 of us, and start working forward to some of the major issues that face this city. Taxpayers don't like to see the bickering and the problems that have been going on for this past week and a half. We need to move up, above and beyond that. We need to respect each other, respect our views, our comments respectfully and professionally at all times. But I think we need to get over this. I'm going to support this recommendation by the majority of council because I think we need to move on, and I think we need to move on for the betterment of this community. We need to move forward and get this behind us. So I appreciate if we can move forward together as a council, and as I said, we can do that in a respectful and professional manner. Thank you.
I agree with most of the statements made this evening, and I'm on board with all of them. 6 years ago, when I was first elected, I promised that I'd run on the theme of teamwork. We have to have teamwork amongst the 5 of us. As was said, we have people who are laid off, we have financial difficulties, we have many more big items that we have to tackle as a group. I'd like to move forward from this point and bury the hatchet, and I don't mean in each other. I mean, let's really bury the hatchet and move forward. These people are here this evening because they care about our community as much as all the rest of us do, and we have to move forward, and that's going to be my promise, to move forward as a group, not as individuals or majorities or minorities. So, having said that, I would ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Councilor McCormick?
Aye.
Councilor Camardo?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Councilor Zika?
No.
Mayor Quill?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you. Mr. Mason's in the back. Congratulations, Mr. Mason. Council Resolution number 9, authorizing a public hearing for CDBG on January 30th. Do we have a sponsor? Councilor Camardo, seconded by Councilor Rizika.
Council Resolution number 9 of 2014 by Councilor Camardo, seconded by Councilor Rizika, Be it resolved by the City Council of City of Auburn, New York, that it does hereby authorize that a public hearing be held before the City Council of the City of Auburn, New York on the 30th day of January 2014 at 6 p.m. at City Council Chambers, first floor, Memorial City Hall, Auburn, New York, concerning the 2014 Community Development Block Grant Action Plan. Be it further resolved that the city clerk is hereby authorized and directed to advertise this resolution in the official newspaper of the City of Auburn in accordance with the governing state and local requirements.
Thank you. Discussion, council. This is just a set of public hearing for CDBG. Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please. I don't mean it's just, I don't mean to belittle it, but that's all it is, a public hearing, so please, I'm getting myself in deeper. Please call the roll.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Counselor Camardo?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Zika?
Yes.
Mayor Quill?
Aye.
Carried.
Financial Resolution Number 10 of 2014, adopting the 2014 Cuyahoga County tax rate and the City of Auburn's share of the Cuyahoga Community College charges. Do we have a sponsor? Counselor Zika, seconded by Counselor Cuddy.
Financial Resolution Number 10 of 2014 by Counselor Zika, seconded by Counselor Cuddy. Whereas the City of Auburn has been notified by the Cuyahoga County Legislature that in accordance with Resolution Number 465-13 adopted by the County Legislature on December 17, 2013, the City of Auburn's participation in the 2014 county tax will be in the amount of $8,099,833 compared to last year's amount of $7,858,560.97, an increase of $241,272.03. The full amount to be raised by the property taxes in the entire county is $37,247,280. That produces the city's share of the county tax levy is 21.75%. And whereas the Cuyahoga County Legislature included within its resolution number 465-13 of 2013 charges to the city taxpayers for the collection of costs related to the preparation and mailing of the county tax bills within the city in the amount of $3,712.84. And whereas the City of Auburn has been notified by the Cuyahoga County Legislature that in accordance with Resolution Number 465-13 adopted by the County Legislature on December 17, 2013, the City of Auburn's proportionate share of the Cuyahoga Community College charges in the amount of $178,327.25 is to be added to the 2014 county tax to be raised by the city. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Auburn, New York, hereby adopts the 2014 county tax rate in the City of Auburn in the amount of $8.451449 per $1,000 of assessed valuation for the city's share of the county tax and .185953 per $1,000 of the assessed valuation for the city's share of the Cuyahoga Community College charges for a total county tax rate of $8.637402 per $1,000, an overall increase of 2.34% over the 2013 rate, and be it further resolved that the Auburn City Council hereby adopts the 2014 county tax rate and authorizes the preparation of the necessary tax bills.
Thank you. Did you do the calculations for those?
No.
Discussion? If you call, Counselor Reese, you all right?
No.
Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Counselor Camardo?
Because of my position at the college, I'm going to abstain.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Zika?
Yes.
Mayor Quill?
Aye.
Carried.
Council Resolution Number 11, authorizing letter of commitment for the fiscal year 2013 staffing for adequate fire and emergency responses grant program for the Auburn Fire Department. Do we have a sponsor? Counselor Cuddy, second by Counselor McCormick.
Council Resolution Number 11 of 2014 by Counselor Cuddy, seconded by Counselor McCormick. Whereas the U.S. Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, offers and awards annual grant funding directly to professional and volunteer fire departments to ensure they have adequate personnel and equipment to respond to and safely perform at incident scenes and provide protection from fire and fire-related hazards for their communities. And whereas of the several annual U.S. FEMA grant programs, the Auburn Fire Department was eligible for a submitted an application for funding assistance under the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response SAFER program to cover expenses associated with restoring 10 firefighters that were eliminated through layoffs and attrition as part of the fiscal year 2013-14 city budget. And whereas as a result of said request, the U.S. FEMA SAFER program has contacted the City of Auburn and is requesting a letter of commitment from the city's governing body agreeing with the terms and conditions of the SAFER grant program should an award be made. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Auburn, New York, 1, that mayor or authorized representative is authorized to submit a letter of commitment to U.S. FEMA outlining a clear understanding of the terms and conditions of a fiscal or FY 2013 SAFER grant. 2, this resolution shall take effect immediately upon its adoption.
Discussion, council? Councilor Camardo.
Mayor, I had some concerns when, back at budget time, when these firemen were laid off. I was concerned about the staffing levels that the department was going to suffer, and because of that, how much overtime the city has accrued so far through this this last fiscal year. That and a lot of legal expense have been expended because of the reduction in the fire department's manning. Unfortunately, that's cost the city quite a bit of money. I was worried about that at the time. I wanted to make sure we did an analytical and accountability of what that was going to cost the city. That didn't happen, unfortunately, but so far to date, Doug, I believe it's cost the city how much money, roughly, in overtime and legal bills?
Well, it's over $100,000. I don't have the complete tally.
Okay.
Our overtime's about $60,000 a month now.
And we've been running about 6 months, correct?
Well,
7 months?
it was lower to begin with. That's why I'm not adding them all up.
And this grant would pay for 100% to bring the firemen back so that we can meet the minimum standings that contractually the city is obligated to do, correct?
Yes, under the current court order that we're operating under, yes.
See, we did go to court. Unfortunately, the judge ruled that go back and negotiate it out. That's something that should be happened all along. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We decided to go legal rounds. This grant came forward back in October, November, and I believe, right, was brought to council.
At the time, Christina Selva gave kind of an overview of the grants we were going to be applying for, yes.
I think the mayor and myself were in agreement to apply for this grant so that we could alleviate some of the problems that we're having, because we can't afford any of this drain on our fund balance, because we just keep draining it down. And this time next year, we won't have anything left in the fund balance, and really put us in difficult situations. So by applying for this grant, I think we're still going to have an opportunity to negotiate with the fire department. We're in negotiations now to try to get some kind of concessions, hopefully, that can help us financially in the future. Correct?
Yes, yes.
So I think this is probably a good opportunity for the city to apply for this grant, so it can give us some relief to get through some of these difficult times.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Zika, please.
Doug, let's rehash this. There was 5 that were actually laid off, but 5 vacant positions, correct?
Right. There were
We didn't fill 5
4
positions.
vacants. Then during the budget process, 6 additional layoffs were identified, one of which was mitigated because there was a retirement, so he never really got laid off.
Okay, so why do now the vacant positions were held in that standard because of budgetary concerns, correct?
The 4 vacancies?
Yes.
Yes, I was holding those vacant.
For the budgetary reasons, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So since then, we've had another retirement, is that true?
Yes.
So now, essentially, the firefighters that are laid off now are 4?
4.
Okay, now, the reason we've got overtime is because we have to maintain a 14-man minimum because of the restraining order. And That's the driver for the overtime, is that minimum manning clause. And I believe, as I read that contract, that did expire. The whole litigation about this is this minimum manning. And in my opinion, minimum manning does not belong in any contract here. It's up to the city manager and the fire chief to determine, first the city manager, what we can afford, and the fire chief to say what's safe. So we apply for this grant, we get it, we bring on 10 firefighters. It only lasts 2 years. What happens at the end of 2 years if we don't have a sudden big financial upsurge here? We're in the same boat. We got it. We're going to have to look at these guys again. And not only that, if you got a department that can't be touched, you're going to have all the other unions going nuts. If we're going to add anywhere, we need to add in the police department. The ratio of service calls in the police to the firemen has been running between 7 to 9 to 1. Police department on the top. If we need to add, we need to add there. I wish there was a grant for that. I'd be all for it. But I cannot support this. I'm being consistent with what I said last time, and I cannot support this simply because I do not believe this is going to fix our problem.
Councilor Cuddy, please.
I look at it a different way. I look at it in pretty much black and white. Right now, we're losing money. If we we as a council show support for this SAFER grant, this will give us time, and will show the bargaining unit that we'll let them know that, give us time to explain more thoroughly our financial situation, and hope that within 2 years, through attrition and just the basic negotiations between the bargaining unit and the city, we'll come to an understanding so that we don't get ourselves into the kind of mess we are in right now. I just want to say that tonight it's a choice of, do we want to continue to lose money, or do we want to bring money into this community so that we can alleviate some of the financial stresses that are plaguing us? I'm going to support this.
Managing his fire department in the 21st century, and the city manager, I have great confidence in what they're going to do the right thing. And they are, there's a grant out there for a reason, and to not apply for a grant, to me, is crazy. There's money. It's like being out there in the middle of the ocean. If somebody throws you a life raft, you don't swim by it. You grab it, and we need the life raft. And it's funny that I use a rescue analogy for this, but it's me. But I totally support this, and I'm very pleased that it's here for us to vote on tonight.
I just want to follow up on one thing that was mentioned earlier. We do have a contract. The contract states minimum manning in a contract. For us to get out of it, as the judge said, we need to go to negotiations and negotiate it out. Now, we're going to be looking for not only the fire department, but all departments to come back with concessions. I hope this shows good faith on the side of the city that we're trying to come to the table. We're trying to negotiate. We need help. There's no question about it. We're all part of the city. We're all part of the same community. But there's something there that the judge has ordered. It's called follow the contract. It was agreed 2 years ago by the city of Auburn, and we can't get around it. We got to follow the terms of the contract. Unfortunately, it will want to be changed by individuals here on council. The judge said, no, we're going to follow, and you're going to negotiate it out. So until we can get to the negotiating table and get through some of these things, we got to alleviate the overtime that's costing us a lot of money, and the legal bills are mounting constantly on this issue.
John, I fully appreciate it. However, the fire department cannot shrink by attrition. The SAFER grant, if I can recall correctly, and I'm sure I am, it has conditions that you have to maintain that staffing level. And if you need to, you have to apply for permission from FEMA in order to allow that to happen, and there's certain triggers there that have to be. I understand everyone's concern here, but I'm looking not at the short term here, but at the long term. I mean, we prevail in the legal challenge, get those terms out, and the staffing level goes to a more affordable level to what the city can pay. The overtime isn't driven because of a 14-man minimum, and the recovery will be over time on any losses that we face here.
It's not driven by overtime, is that what you said?
It will, because instead of paying for overtime due to the 14-man minimum constraint, we won't have that staffing level. We won't be required to have that staffing level.
Until you can negotiate it out, the judge sent it back to be negotiated.
Unfortunately, like I say, I read the contract, and I have to agree with our position that we took with our labor relations attorney.
But the judge didn't agree with that.
It's subject to appeal.
Anything
And
else?
it's more cost and more on and on and on, instead of getting to the table so we can get through some of these issues, so, but that said,
Well, I understand, but this is a chronic problem.
I'll keep quiet.
Counselor, you were correct that you and I last fall voted in favor of this, and I haven't changed my opinion on it. I wish we had approved this at that time. We probably would have saved a lot of money, but hindsight's 20/20. Public safety, in my mind, police, fire, that is the #1 job of any municipality, any city. Police Chief Janata and I were very good friends, and we used to laugh with each other. We were both in uniform. Police would say this about the firefighters, firefighters would say this about police officers, and there's more than once we both wanted to throw up our hands and say, look it, why don't you guys and gals just go walk next door and become that job if it's that much better over there, and that got us in trouble with everyone. But it's an unfair argument in my mind, Counselor, to compare police versus fire. And my son is a police officer. I argue this with him. In the police department, and I'll stand to be corrected, but majority of their calls are over. The accident has occurred. The bank robbery has been done. The peeping Tom has left your front porch. And we're firefighters, most of the time, it's an ongoing heart attack. It's a fire. It's a flooded basement. So I'm not saying one job is better than the other. I know what I did for a living. I'm very proud of it, and I'm very proud of my son. But I don't think it's a fair assessment to judge one against the other. So that's a personal opinion. With that, once again, I agree with everyone here in a lot of their thoughts. But let's move this forward, and we have many, many other issues to work on.
Sure.
So Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Counselor Camardo?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Zika?
No.
Mayor Quill?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you. Table legislation, Council Resolution Number 5 of 2014, approving settlement of the pending litigation by the Finger Lakes Hotel? In the Finger Lakes, excuse me. Sponsored by Councilor Rozika, second by Councilor McCormick. Council, before we move on, I would ask that we table this for one more week. Mr. Selby and I have been in communication with Mr. Chapman, the chairman of the county legislature. They need a little more, they would like a little more time. So with council's indulgence, I would make a motion to table this for hopefully one more week, and the county will get their act together.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilor Camardo. Would you call the roll in regards to tabling this?
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Counselor Camardo?
Yes.
Counselor Cuddy?
Yes.
Counselor Zika?
Yes.
Mayor Quill?
Aye.
Tabled.
Thank you. Mr. Selby, landfill rates?
Yes.
I'm on track.
While Mike Talbot's coming up, this was an item that's been in front of the council a number of times, but never in front of this council with Councilor Cuddy and Councilor McCormick here. What we want to do this evening is kind of give you a recap of where we left off, maybe starting with where we were before we got into the discussion of new tipping fees, and then see if council would like us to come back with a resolution to set some new fees. So, when
We'll
Mike,
see this coming year. We can work on a little better audio visual sometime.
Yeah.
This is tough up here, and I'm sure the people in the audience find it even harder, so
Yep.
maybe we can look into that.
it's a big screen.
Big screen, widescreen.
Okay.
Either that, maybe we just go to a local facility and have a different type of meeting, so.
Well, thanks for the time tonight, and apologize because I have to flip through a couple different files here, so I've already driven people out. Look at that. So just to catch us up to speed, this is the landfill here, and That's existing. Here's North Division Street out here. That is the old landfill that's closed. This is landfill 2 that's currently operational. So you have cell 1. Let me see, I borrowed this from planning for a reason. So there's cell 1, that's cell 2, cell 3, and cell 4. So we're currently filling at the tops of cells 1, 2, and 3, and also in the 10 acres there in cell 4. Now, if we remember back, we brought forth several different options for the landfill. Option 1, if you remember, there's the closed landfill there, landfill 1, there's landfill 2. Option 1 was to partner with the county, and that is county property to develop as you can see, a large footprint landfill. Option 2 was a standalone separate cell right here of about 9 to 10 acres. Option 3 is this right here in conjunction with option 2, is to connect to cell 3 and come south, north is straight up by the way, and continue south in conjunction with that. There was also an option 4, which is to add an overliner to the old closed landfill 1 and continue to fill there. Now, if we utilized every option we have available to us with the property that we own, we would have enough land filling for probably about 20 years. But I think we've all decided that the landfill business, unlike some of our other enterprise funds, is a competitive. It's a competitive market, and there's 2 very large landfills just west of us that really set the rates. They are the drivers, so it's very hard for us to compete. And I think we got the consensus from council the last few months that for our permitted landfill, which is 96,000 tons, is to maintain our level at about 60,000 tons, which the benefit of that is we prolong the landfill life. One of the downsides of that is we run into a revenue deficit without adjusting some rates. So that's where we are right now, is the, sorry about that. You gotta come over here where I can see it. So that brings us to, this one here. If you remember back in November, we discussed some of the different options available to us. And I think we've all are in agreement that at 60,000 tons per year, it gives us the benefit of extending the life of the landfill and also getting a future game plan of what we're going to do with our city-generated refuse. So that's how the 60,000 tons breaks down. We don't want to increase what we charge ourselves for our curbside collection, which roughly, I think this past calendar year, is at about 8,300 tons. We estimate about 10,000, so that's inclusive of any vacant houses that have to come down or anything like that. So we don't want to increase the city rate. So we have to make up the balance of the deficit because we're not pulling in 96,000 tons anymore, we're just staying at 60,000. So we've also made a few assumptions in some of these calculations that a higher C&D rate, for the potential, which is probably likely, will reduce our C&D volume by 20%. The idea being to discourage the C&D waste because it really doesn't add anything to our methane generation. So scenario 1 was to raise the C&D fee, and it's not to generate, it's to address the deficit. City rate remains unchanged, still assuming 20% reduction. So our revenue requirements, if you see in all these scenarios, it's $3.1 million. That does not change regardless of what quantity of tonnage we bring in. That's a fixed cost, and it's there every year. So all these numbers are based on that. So if we raise the C&D, remember these are just different scenarios. C&D raised to $91.50 a ton. City rate stays the same. MSW at $50 a ton. Then there was a scenario 2, city rate again unchanged. And then we'd adjust the MSW and the C&D rates to cover the deficit. So C&D was actually raised to $72.75, which is less than scenario 1. City stays the same, and the MSW is at 55, so it raised $55 a ton over that. Scenario 3, which was discussed, was to accept no C&D and just take in, so you can see the MSW raised quite a bit to $74.50. I think what needs to be discussed also, with some of these rates, we would not remain competitive and we would lose some volume. So from that discussion in November, that brings us back to here, which is where we left off in the beginning of December. So some of the calculations that are made, these are where we're getting closer, and hopefully we'll have some discussion tonight on some of the potential rates. So we're, in an overview, we're permitted for 96,000 tons per year, and we'll be at about 60,000 tons. That's what we're basing our numbers on. So what was discussed is to have a tiered rate schedule in the contracts. If we recall, MSW, little incentive to bring more of that, and it's going to be a lesser rate than the C&D. And we balance our solid waste fund by a rate increase and not pursue haul waste, extend landfill life. That's our 60,000 ton scenario right there. So our city generation is about 10,000 tons at the curb. You can see what that is. MSW, roughly around 37,500 tons at $44 a ton. And then you'd get C&D at $48 a ton. You can see the total tipping fees there, 2.5. But the problem is our costs are roughly 3.1 million, so it leaves a balance of a deficit of about $500,000. So how we address that is you can increase the city rate, the MSW rate, and the C&D rate, all there in parentheses. That would balance our fund. The problem with that is if we do anything with the city rate, there's an effect on the general fund, because the general fund pays us for our curbside generated garbage that we pick up each week. So that's one of the motivating reasons why we kept it at $31 a ton. So that was scenario 1, and which was, I think, was discussed by council, and not too warmly, simply because of the increase of the city rate. So then we went to scenario 2, which was balance the fund by raising the local contract rates, which is the tonnage we've been talking about, and pursue the haul garbage for the remaining 96,000 tons. Pretty much that's what we've done for years, is that scenario here. Benefit of it, we do meet our cost, including a transfer to the general fund. Disadvantage is it takes up landfill space, reduces the life. So that one, you do the math on that, and that wasn't too warm either. So and this is how the landfill costs are broken down. This is how, remember, we went over this before. I'll just flip through it. There's our operating costs, how it breaks down: labor, operating supplies, postage, fuel, everything inclusive. So that's where we're at right now. So this right here really sums up, if we go with those rates, what our deficit's going to be. And what we need to do is, that deficit of 500,000 there, is address that in these rate increases. And I think where we left off, and manager, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but going by memory, I think we were at 70, C&D, I think we were $73 a ton.
Yeah. And I think MSW was 50.
And MSW was $50 a ton. So with those numbers, plugging them in, it does balance. Downside of that is it's, we could lose customers, and then we'd have to reassess where our rates are. So once again, we are unlike some of our other enterprise funds, this one is competitive, and we've proven we can't compete with the larger landfills. So I think this is all in line with, talking about the options for expansion at the landfill that are quite pricey, and probably in the city's best interest to, address what we're going to do with our curbside collection in future.
Councilor Camardo, please.
Mike, just to give everybody a backup on what's going on here, is if we lower the tonnage we're taking in, we can extend the life of the landfill by roughly 10 years, correct?
Well, and once again, they're crunching the survey data now. Our last bond will be paid for cell 4 in 2021, so that's 7 years. So what we want to do is extend the landfill the 7 years of some incoming.
That was going to be my next point. We owe approximately $6.4 million on the landfill construction costs initially. And what you want to do is try to have this life of the landfill follow the life of the bond anticipation that you have to pay for.
Right.
So that was one of the initial talks that we had earlier on. Now, if we lose some customers, I know that's tough financially, but we also save space in the landfill, so we don't have to build a cell sooner than later, correct?
Correct. That's one of the advantages of losing business, I guess.
Well, you don't want to, but if the worst-case scenario is you save space,
Right.
you'd like to try to get as much business as you can so you can keep the revenue stream coming in. But I think we talked about at one time is bringing up the C&D as much as possible, because you didn't want a lot of that in the landfill because you can't generate methane from it, correct?
Right.
And we wanted to bring in MSW and not have such an effect to the city rate, which was about $31 a ton.
Right.
And even with these scenarios, we're still transferring about $350,000 back to the general fund because of operations and, administrative costs that's going back to the general fund. So we are generating some money for the general fund, even with these rates.
That's correct.
I just wanted to make sure everybody had a little backup. But I have no problem with, if we keep the city rate the way it is, raising the C&D up a little bit and keeping the MSW at somewhere in the 50-plus area.
Councilor Zika?
Yeah, what I'd like to do is let's look at the future cost of what we're going to have to do is, if we're going to add another cell or if we have to become a transfer station. Take that cost and look at and do a present and future cost analysis here. Again, if we lose, let's say if by number crunching in the $500K a year loss projected out over the years, and then versus the end cost of adding a cell or configuring for a transfer station, and regardless, a transfer station is in our future. So we really have to start planning here now. I think we have to kind of do a plan out and do a plan out for a number of years, or try to project it out as many years as we feel reasonably comfortable in doing. Like I say, to Councilor Camardo is if we take in the less C&D, which is not as desirable for methane generation, but it causes some level of loss. However, the net is still covered by some return back to the general fund. So these are all factors that we have to have put right in front of us to adjust these rates, and also some level of the market study. I really think that we need to look not in the short term, and I mean short term, not in the 3 or 4 years, but we got a debt service we got to retire. We have the future, which is going to be eventually, we're running out of space. The county was not very receiving of us expanding across that line. So I think really we need to kind of dig a little deeper in this. I know it's a little more burden here, but this decision really hinges a lot on how we operate this landfill. I understand that you want to make sure that everything runs and you want to have everything look great, but we may have to accept some level of loss due to the future concerns. So these are the things we really need to balance. Plus, we really have to keep our finger on the pulse of the rates to try and keep that in a balanced situation. So we can know either I'm going to say maybe even accept a certain level of loss and determine a certain level of loss to be acceptable given the long-term ramifications. So, like I say, this is all part of the planning that we need to do.
Mr. Cuddy?
I agree with Councilor Rosica's assessment. Has there been a feasibility study to have a transfer station perhaps run concurrently with the remainder of the cell? I know that creating a new cell is much more expensive than a transfer station. Am I correct in that assumption, or are they comparable?
No, it's more expensive and it's a bigger commitment. One of the options we looked at was a transfer station. The other would be direct haul, where our trucks, when they're full, go off to an alternate landfill, and that would be under the assumption ours is closing down. But I think as staff, when we've talked about this and we talked with our consultants about it, being in the landfill business just isn't our cup of tea. As government, we're not designed to be competitive with the private sector. In addition, we're a small operation, so we don't get the economies of scale of a large operation like Seneca Meadows. So we believe as staff, we should get out of the landfill business in terms of the filling and the covering and the monitoring and all the things that we have to do when we do a landfill, and get into either some kind of a transfer station or a direct haul operation. So I think we're talking about all of these plans here and these rate structures around the idea of retire the debt on the existing facility and develop an alternative to traditional landfill.
So it has been discussed that a transfer station might be considered as in the long term.
What I popped up there is the different options associated with really the development of the landfill. One of them is a transfer station. So this was presented last year. What I can do is send everybody to refresh their memories, maybe for the councilors who didn't receive it at the time, this report again. And what it does, it really goes into it. And realistically, yes, a transfer station is probably imminent for us, for the size of our city and what we generate. So, and there's different ways to pay for that. There's different ways to structure how our residents pay for it. And hopefully, Councilor Rizk, I think that's probably what you're leaning towards, correct?
Correct.
Of really trying to flush out the best thing for our people.
Councilor McCormick?
I think it was last year, someone from Seneca Meadows came. I don't even know if that was the name of the company, but they are Seneca Meadows. Was that one of the solutions you were looking at, or did he offer, was that what that was all about?
Well, I mean, that certainly is one option, to use them as a landfill. There's another landfill just beyond them that I'm sure would welcome our garbage also for whatever rate. So, realistically, those are the two landfills that would compete for our garbage.
But was it more than just welcome, taking it there? Wasn't it they did a lot of other things. Would they?
Well, they're one of the largest solid waste companies in North America. So they have a lot of resources at their disposal, and they're on the cutting edge of waste technology. So, and that's wherein lies some of our problem. I'm sorry, Mayor, go ahead.
Please go ahead.
I was going to say the landfill business has changed so much over the 1950s when, the philosophy was you throw garbage on the ground and you cover it at night. It's evolved, and rightfully so, and it's now at a point where it's not just, and that's why a lot of places got out of the landfill business in the 90s when the regulations changed. Auburn decided to stay in the business, and believe me, we've had some really good years at the landfill, but as the recession has hit, there's less garbage out there. It's a much more competitive, and you have these large, and if you remember back when we were doing the cost scenarios, 99% of your cost is construction costs. So the larger landfill you build, the more garbage you can bring in to offset that cost. So that's the economy of scale for those landfills down the road from us. What we do in a year, they do in 2 weeks. So that's why they can charge less per ton to the same customers that we try to get.
Mike, I think we talked...
No, I'm good.
Mike, I think we talked in generalities about having someone such as Seneca Meadows or something come in and operate our landfill. And I don't know if that's what you were thinking of, Counselor, but
That could have been.
we discussed it. But the bottom line is we still have to close the landfill.
Right.
And if we ship everything out, we don't have money to pay for closing of the landfill. Am I correct?
Well, yeah, by law, we're required to set aside money for closure. And we have to, the assurance every year in our annual report, which is due the end of next month. So there's financial information we have to include in our report. And it was, I think 4 or 5 years ago, we actually put an RFP out for a private firm to come in and operate our landfill. And one of the problems is there's no more permitted space down there. Private companies out to make money. And their MO would probably be to come in and jack everybody's rates up, fill the landfill up as quickly as possible, make their profit, and head out. Because ultimately they wouldn't buy the landfill, they just run it for us, and we have to monitor for 30 years after we take that last bag of garbage. So that's also something to consider. But to my point is, not one person bid on it simply because we're so small. The payback for them isn't there.
Wasn't worth their while.
No.
Councilor Buddy?
Mayor Quill, would there be, Mike, would there be a, I know that C&D is not the least desirable kind of garbage we would take. Would that be, if there was a transfer station that was run concurrently, could we send that material to, to Seneca Meadows and basically kind of pick and choose the kind of material that we want to put in our landfill to get the $6 million worth out of it? I guess, trying to keep our landfill going while we have a transfer station in hand. Again, planning ahead instead of waiting until the last, bag of garbage is there and then we should build a transfer station. I think, if it's economically feasible, we can kind of be doing, like Councilor Rosica said, planning ahead and going about this in a way that we maximize our time, we maximize our money, and we maximize the usefulness in the future of what we're going to be doing.
Right.
I think that is the same fact that Councilor Rosica brought up a few months ago, where, because even with a transfer station, there's a permitting process we'll have to go through, which takes time. Now, the problem with, if the timing works out right, one of the issues would be we'd also have debt service now to pay on a transfer station if we built it now, and the debt service on the landfill until that's retired. So I think we'd probably want to time that a little more closely with when the landfill's going to close. Otherwise, we'd have 2 notes to pay instead of 1, with probably not an excess amount of tonnage coming in to generate the revenue. So, that's, I think what we're hoping for from here tonight is to have council, for hopefully next week, a vote with an increase in the rates right now to get us on that path. And what that'll do is set the stage to address our future concerns.
I have to ask you, have the surveys come in?
Yes, and we should know next week.
Okay, so we should know next week a little bit, we'll have a fresher set of data is what you're going to say.
Yeah, and landfill's measured in airspace.
Correct.
So how much we consumed. And then we have a vertical limit, so what we do is back our way into how much space we have left, and you do the division, you come out with years. Now, you can base the longevity on any denominator. We're going to use 60,000 tons because that's what we've talked about. So it'll be apples to apples when we're discussing these landfill scenarios with how much life we have left.
But then again, now we'll have another a point, and maybe we can trend and see from the, I don't know what number of years that it would be a valid part of this, for the trending, but we should trend this and kind of get an idea, and because the past performance here does somewhat predict the future performance, but like everything else, it's the future. You can't 100% predict it, but at least it gives us a feel for it, and that all has to be part of this equation. We have to know as best number we can when we're going to be out of space.
Right.
And the fact that I think the C&D had been brought up prior discussions just along the same lines of we were talking about. The discussion was to perhaps even containerize it and have that offloaded and brought, and that has not been totally, I think, flushed out. I mean, we should probably start considering something like that, but again, we have to weigh the costs of it right now. and any usefulness of any of the C and D possibly being reprocessed and using as cover dirt. I mean, I know we talked about that, and then there's some costs associated with that as well, is the grinding of it.
Councilor Camardo.
If I can, just two things that I want to remind council. Number one, we just bonded $4.9 million on a cogeneration plant that we need to generate methane as long as possible to pay for that plant. So we got to keep that in mind, that we keep the landfill going as long as possible so we can generate that. Secondly, the taxpayers invested quite a bit of money into that landfill down there, and they expect that service to be continued, at least through the debt service. So I just want to make sure that we think about those two points that I just brought up.
Yeah, I understand that, but we have a competing timeline of when we're full.
Well, hopefully we can get it out 10 years and, we're not rushed into something where we're taking on
Understood, but I mean,
board
that's part of what we just,
and try to extend it out so we can pay for our cogen plant with methane that needs to come out of that landfill. Because would you say last time, Doug, it's a couple years after you stop using the landfill that starts to spike down the methane use or
Yeah, our
production?
experts tell us 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
Have we made the mud any clearer for you, Mr. Selby?
Well,
Mike?
we'll come back next week with something to actually take a vote on. And in the meantime, Mike, let's get the council the evaluations that were done back in 2012 and any other information.
Council, is that fair enough?
Sure.
With everyone here?
Is everybody comfortable if I send it electronically? It's a big file, so, but what you'll find is each option explained and some of the different scenarios and some of the assumptions and some of the projections. That table right here that we're looking, I apologize, it's difficult for everybody to see, including me, but all the information's there, and, some of them you'll see. We tried to entertain every option, however crazy it seemed and however economically disastrous, they are still options, so they're all spelled out right there.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Council, your turn, other business. Everybody's happy. Councilor McCormick.
Gotta find my paper. Well, I just wanted to let you know, as a counselor, if I can find my paper, losing my mind. Mayor Quill and I met today with Steve Green and Jim Beckwith from the Wasco Watershed Lake Association. I think I've got that right. And we've invited them, if it's agreeable with council, to come and do a presentation, update, if you will, maybe in March, and to do it more frequently, actually, on just what's going on with the watershed, with the Wasco Lake, with all they're doing. There's something going on, but we're remiss in not getting them to come here, I think, and let the citizens of Auburn know what's going on. They do a lot, and they're hiring a new watershed inspector, I think, and
Or they have hired.
they're in the, yeah. So we're going to try and get more frequent visits and get more communication about what's going on with them, and with Owasco Lake as well. So that's good. I invited myself to one of the CETA meetings on the Cuga Economic Development Agencies. I got that right. I just sat in on the meeting just to see what was going on, and they're a very busy group. Andrew Fish really is working very hard. I just wanted to comment on that. I had to just wanted to go and meet as many people as I could, and that was a lazy way to do it. They were all in one room, so I did that. Also, I attended the Wednesday morning roundtable, and the Bartolota family did a presentation on the work that they have done, are in the middle of doing, and plan to be doing. And they've, one of the facts that just stuck in my mind was they have 100 new residents downtown already. They're filled, all the properties that they have renovated, that have apartments or living quarters in, are full. So that's, and he said it wasn't the typical empty nesters that they expected to have. It's a mix, but more, what did he, professionals, young professionals, and people that have, I love this, disposable income. So that's good for them. So I just wanted to update council, let you know if what I've been out there doing. I'm just trying to get city council or the city's presence out in the community as much as I can. So let you know if anything good happens out of that.
Counselor, what he did say also was that many of these people are moving downtown, and I don't remember the term, but they're working in Syracuse, they're working in Rochester, Ithaca, but they like living here, so they're doing
That's
the
great.
commute back and forth, so.
You mentioned Wegmans. That was the other thing, that we are unique because Wegmans is downtown. For people that like to live in a downtown area, they don't have to look for a place to shop like that. That Wegmans is really an asset to be downtown. And it's good.
Counselor Zika.
Yes, again, recap on actually the recap on the recap list. I'd like to see this made more of a punch list. I mean, I see it kind of dropped off here. I thought we had talked about it, that it would be part of this document and items would be left on until they were cleaned off. I know we were sent a list, but to me, you can get sent a list. I'd like, the object was to get some activity on these. So I'd like to see that put in place. The fellow that was complaining about the sewage revolving loan, it's interesting that it ran out of money, and could we look at the billing on that stuff and see billing for the services and compare them against some other reasonable, or even have our people look at it and see if their reasonable charges were applied? Because it seems odd to me that we would run out of money here.
Yeah, I think,
I really think that we need to look at what was charged for these services, and maybe as a part of a little bit of an oversight, since we are providing these funds as a loan, that we should be the advocate for the taxpayer and making sure that he's getting a reasonable charge here. The other thing is I'd like to see is Vicki Murphy sent us an update on the her budget performance, and have now included the end of December, and I guess say thank you to Vicki for that. When can we look at the other departments' budget level performances?
we do that the third meeting of the month.
No, but we didn't cover sanitary, sewers, fire, police.
Oh, you mean to profile them in the
Yes.
presentation? Depends on how much time council would like to devote to
Well,
that. We did Public Works last month, if you'd like.
Right, but I'd like to see it with the updated numbers here, if we could. A
Yeah.
quick overview, so that we can all kind of calibrate, because this is, as we should be planning, or start planning right now for the budget, these things would be of value, so we can understand where things look like they might be maybe doing well, or maybe going astray.
Counselor, if I may jump in here. Mr. Selby, maybe in the next couple of weeks, maybe after the first of the year, things are slowing down a little bit, maybe we can devote a good portion of a meeting to these, the budget
Correct.
forms that the council is looking for. I don't want to put anything off, but maybe we can rearrange. I know that's not always easy, but that may be the way to go.
What I was going to suggest, as you know, Mayor and myself attended the audit committee this afternoon, and hopefully within 2 weeks, I think we'll have a report ready to come to council, and right into that, and right after that, I think we should start on the budget and start having, monthly meetings that are dedicated to the budget process, so that we're prepared for the June 1st deadline that we're going to be looking at. But I think that'll be ready in 2 weeks, I think is what they're planning on having it ready for, so we can be right into that phase. And just the last thing I had, Doug, did you get a firm commitment with the county when we're going to meet with them?
Not yet. We're working to try to find as early as we can in February, probably a Wednesday evening.
Okay.
Mr. Rossi, I've got, in regards to that, can the city council meet as a group out of town? Because we mentioned meeting at the BOCES Center, just to make it a little more conducive to business. But I have something in the back of my mind that we're not allowed to do that, whether it's a legal meeting or not. So
I'll have to check, but I think it would be, they have a meeting outside the city limits, I think is stretching.
yeah.
I wouldn't recommend it.
Mayor, the chairman asked me about that too, and he said maybe it'd be a good idea if we went to the college.
And that's fine, but I know we just talked with Mr. Chapman, the chairman, and the administrator, we talked about BOCES, but there was something in my mind banging around that we could not go outside the city limits, so. Councilor Zika.
Oh, Doug, again, like, I tried enhancing that one document, and it's still not very readable from that package that you sent us on the radios.
Yeah, I spoke to Suzanne at the county yesterday, and she was going to dig into their files. She wasn't there when a lot of this was executed.
Then I had asked for the design specification and bids, and design and bid specifications.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else? Thank you. Council, I'll jump in with a couple items. This week, I was notified by Auburn Community Baseball that I've been elected to their board of directors because Councilor Graney was our representative. Councilor Graney is no longer there, so I've been appointed. I'm very pleased about that. Been watching baseball down that park all my life, I believe. Secondly, the CETA meeting that Councilor McCormick talked about, that is a monthly meeting, so any member of council wants to sit in, you're more than welcome. I'm the representative because of my position. Mr. Selby's in attendance normally, along with Jenny Haynes. But any member of council, just let us know. We can't have two councilors, myself there, as you know, but it's usually it's always on 8 a.m. on a Thursday, and it may be the second Thursday or the fourth Thursday of the month. Okay, so if you're interested, please let us know, and we'll get to the meeting, so. All right. Do we have a recap? First one.
I do believe I have a few things. Councilor Zika would like to see the recap items kept on the agenda until they are fulfilled. Councilor Zika would like billing on services for the sewer services looked into. Councilor Zika would also like an update of department levels for budgetary performance. Mayor Quill asked possibly in the next couple months a meeting strictly set aside for budget and departments discussing for budget this year.
No, I really don't mean the next couple of months, within the next, as soon as possible. And
as soon as possible?
in fact, is
Okay.
practical with the city manager and scheduling. Is that correct, Council? Do we have a request for executive session?
Yes, I do, Your Honor. I have a possible property transfer and possible litigation.
And I'd like to add, Mr. Selby, please.
Labor negotiations and a personnel item.
And I have a personnel issue I'd like to add also. So.
Okay.
This time, entertain a motion for executive session. Councilor McCormick, seconded by Councilor Cuddy. Clerk, would you call the roll?
Councilor McCormick?
Aye.
Councilor Camardo?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Councilor Zika?
Yes.
Mayor Quill?
Aye. We'll be in recess for executive session. In the next